So my name is Stempka, and I am the Executive Director at Environment Erie. Today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace and the nonprofit world. Previously, in a previous life, I was the Director of Education for the Greater Mankato Diversity Council in Mankato, Minnesota. And so my whole world was diversity, equity, inclusion in K through 12 in the for-profit and nonprofit world, helping people to kind of understand and navigate what that looked like for them in their workplaces. Oftentimes, when you do think about diversity, most people immediately jump to the racial and ethnic component of diversity. Next, you often, people will immediately think of gender diversity as well. When I speak about diversity, I'm thinking about the broad range of diversity. And so you're thinking about religious belief, you're thinking about age diversity as well. So there's a broad range of diversity. Currently, if you look at diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace, whether it's for-profit or nonprofit, you're actually seeing some parallels. What's happening in the for-profit space is actually also taking place in the nonprofit world as well. So the Annie E. Casey Foundation does a lot of great things in the nonprofit realm, particularly around research. And some of their current research that's come out within the last few years shows that while people of color represent about 30% of the workforce in the for-profit realm, we're actually only seeing the people of color representing about 18% of the workforce in nonprofits and about 22% in foundation staff. Now, those numbers actually decrease a little bit when you look at the executive leadership of nonprofit and foundation staff. As well as when you're looking at gender diversity. When you look at gender diversity as it pertains to top level positions within nonprofits, there also is a little bit of a disconnect, particularly when you relate it back to women are getting their college educations in greater numbers compared to men. Yet in executive level positions in nonprofits, women are only representing about 45% of those positions. Anywhere between the year 2035 and 2050, there will no longer be any racial or ethnic majority in the United States. So the idea is that we now need to start really intentionally and thoughtfully doing the work in our nonprofits to help our nonprofits reflect the broader community. All of the research points to your organizations are more creative, more innovative, better at solving problems, and better at making decisions when you have a broader diversity of perspectives and experiences in your staff and in your boards. If the makeup of your board and or your staff is reflective of the world around you, then your organizations obviously are better able to meet the needs of the communities in which you serve. One of the other interesting perspectives of having a diversity of perspective, experience, etc. around the table is there's the opportunity to bring a whole wide variety of resources to your organization that you may never have considered previously. When you talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, you can almost immediately see people get a little anxiety ridden. That is perception number one, right? It's hard. Really fully addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion in your organization, it takes courage. It takes a lot of courage to challenge the biases and assumptions that are really deeply embedded in our society. One of the other hurdles that I often hear when I've done this work in the past is people don't know where to start. It's overwhelming when you consider this broad topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion. One of the other things that I have heard in working with people around this topic is people are really concerned about saying the wrong thing, and so they don't want to engage in these discussions and address these issues because they're there's anxiety around being wrong. You have to be a little bit vulnerable to engage in this type of endeavor, and to be okay with asking questions. So if you're concerned with, well, I might say the wrong thing, then ask the question, like, I'm not really sure how to properly address X, Y, or Z. Can you give me the language to do that? And so those are some of the hurdles that people often perceive in regards to kind of addressing this topic in their organizations. As nonprofits, we are in service to our community, and our organization should really work to reflect the community with which we engage and in which we do our work.